Hello and welcome back to the Goat Cave podcast. Today we have quite the episode ahead of us. We're joined by Beatrice from the Bloom, and we have a very, very special guest. He is one of the most known riders in BMX with 16 Xgames medals and holds the record for the most Dew Tour finals appearances. Not only has he helped shape the way that we ride today, but is also paving the way for the generations to come. He can be found riding his awesome backyard ramp or coaching the women's USA team for the 2020 Olympics. Many of us in the early 2000s may have even played his character in the Dave Mirra games. And you can't forget about the remote control barspin bike. That was seriously like one of my favorite things ever. And his brother Shea, they made that show getting awesome, and it was incredible. Mm-hmm. I loved it. And yeah, we're super excited to speak with the one and only Ryan Nyquist. Ryan, how are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Wonderful. So the way that this show starts, typically I like to ask, how you got into BMX and how long ago it was.
I got into riding BMX. My first bike was a BMX bike, and I learned how to ride it when I was 3. And then I actually never really had a mountain bike until I decided I was going to do like slopestyle bike riding, or mountain bike riding. So it was always BMX. And then kind of when I was 11, met some people at my middle school that knew of a place that had dirt jumps, and they took me out there and kind of went from there.
That's awesome. I was going to say, you're absolutely unreal on a slopestyle bike as well, which is just so crazy, to see like the transformation from BMX to, mountain biking and the tricks that you're doing on there, like just so cool.
Yeah, that was super, like a really fun experience. I could honestly say it was probably, not what most, 36-year-olds would kind of do is transition to something that's a lot crazier and gnarlier than what did on the BMX bike. And that's honestly the way it felt. Was like every time I, had to kind of do something that, would help me complete a run, like 316 off a flat drop or something like that I'd never done. It was like the biggest thing I'd ever done on 2 wheels. It was just definitely like a lot of scary moments, but I loved it. Like I loved every second of it. I loved meeting all the new people and discovering what that scene was about. And I had some good success in that world, but just really just the friends that I made and connections I made, like it was just really, really awesome experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't say just good, you'd won like 3rd place and I think Joyride and stuff. That was huge. How was that transition from like BMX to mountain biking? Because like when I do it, like going back and forth was super hard. So like when you were doing the touring, was it just 100% mountain biking, or did you switch back and forth to help you like with training and everything?
Yeah, that was kind of honestly one of the toughest parts was, going back and forth between the BMX bike and the mountain bike. Just because the wheels and everything were such a big difference in size and how the bike actually felt in the air. So going back and forth was honestly the hardest part, and mainly going back to BMX bikes.
Yeah.
I mean,
twitchier.
The mountain bikes were so sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were so sturdy in the air, and then the BMX bike just felt like you were riding on a 16-inch bike. Everything was like super twitchy, and just the bars, were spinning so much faster. The bike would whip around 360 so much faster. It really took, like 2 full days of riding BMX to get back used to it. So that was honestly one of the biggest challenges, and to be totally honest, like one of the biggest sacrifices I made too, because when I was trying to do both, like I was never really doing one like the best I could do. It was always kind of like spreading myself thin. So, and unfortunately, I found that I was super passionate about the mountain bike side because it was so new and so fresh and so exciting that I spent a lot more time on the mountain bike. And yeah, that year I got 3rd was just like, that was a huge surprise.
I was there. It was pretty special. I don't know if you remember the Asian girl just being like, "Hey, Ryan," and just like geeking out. That was me.
Fangirl.
Yeah.
I mean that year I was literally just trying to do better than 9th, which is what I got the previous year, and then to be able to get 3rd on the podium was just like, dude, this is next level. That's wild.
As BMXers, it was really awesome to see you like do that. It was a huge feat. So I do want to know though, what was your first bike in BMX, and what was your first bike in mountain biking when you started to enter the scene?
First bike?
Mm-hmm.
And BMX, I mean, it was my very first bike was, it was like, I don't know, I think the brand name was Kent, and it was like black and with red components, and probably like a little 16-inch bike, you know, or maybe even a 12-inch, I don't know, but I loved that bike, and I rode it until pretty much my parents had to take it away. I think they actually made an excuse that I broke it and they couldn't fix it, and so then they got me a new bike, and I think it was because I outgrew it, but that was the only way they were going to get me off of it.
Oh.
And then mountain bike, I mean, my first one was honestly a Haro. Like I never really dabbled too much in that world. You know, if I needed to get someplace, I just rode my BMX bike. If I wanted to ride, you know, jumps or ramps, I rode a BMX bike. And so, you know, I didn't really need like a mountain bike, and I didn't really like have any interest in like kind of riding any trails either. So, really my first real mountain bike was a Haro.
Nice.
It's so crazy to think that, you know, after 25 years of being a professional BMX rider, you're still riding with Haro, you know, like it was your first bike. That's like so cool, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really happy about that, because it's just, I don't know. Haro feels like family, you know, and I mean, obviously there's a deal in place and it continues on and on and on, but it's just, I think right now, it's funny, I'm second in seniority at Haro.
Who's number one?
The president there. So, yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Like when you think, and I joked with the president, I was like, wait, so when you leave, does that mean I'm president? Like, how does that work? You know, but yeah, it's cool, man. I'm stoked that they still want to support me, and you know, they're a great company and have done a lot of amazing things, you know, throughout the history of BMX, because they're pretty much the brand that started. You know, they were the first in freestyle with Bob Haro.
They were actually, I think it was Your Frame was my first complete bike actually. So Haro runs deep with like how I started with BMX too.
And what I love about Haro is that the Haro team is seriously like, you know, there's not too many riders on the Haro team, but the riders that are on the Haro team are legitimately the top 1% of BMX riders in the world. Like they're all the best in the world. You have Dennis Anderson, yourself, DMC, you know, Chad Curley, Mike Gray, like unreal lineup of riders.
Yeah, we got a nice team going now, and then we also have Matthias Dendois.
Oh my God, yeah, you can't forget about Matisse, like insane.
So how did you?
Yeah, so our crew is pretty awesome.
How did you get hooked up with Haro though? How were you introduced to like the key people that got you where you are now?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
So how did you get introduced to Haro?
Oh, well, so, so in 95, 96, I was riding for this company called Bontrager, who now makes, you know, components for like the Trek line of bikes and stuff, but they were originally a mountain bike company out of Santa Cruz, California, and they wanted to try to make some BMX bikes, so they sponsored myself and my good friend Chris Bryant, and they hooked us up with bikes, and you know, eventually sent me out to some pro level contests and stuff. And then it was right at that time that they were getting bought. Bontrager was getting bought by Trek, and so I kind of didn't have a contract anymore, and I was doing well enough at these contests where I got recognized. And basically, I started getting some offers kind of coming in. One, Trek wanted me to ride for them. Another one was Mongoose. Another one was like this company Morales, which is more of like a core company at the time. And then Haro actually called too. So I was kind of weighing out a lot of different options. And it's funny because Todd Lyons was the one that I guess had recommended me to ride for Haro, because he was leaving Haro to go to Huffy. And so there was this like kind of opening for like a dirt jumper, you know, / freestyle guy. And Todd Lyons was kind of all over the place. He was doing BMX race, dirt, park, you know, like he was kind of a multi-talented rider. And so they were looking for somebody to kind of fill his spot, and started talking to me. And after weighing everything out, I decided to go with Haro, and that was in 1997. And then yeah, just the rest is history. I've been there ever since.
During that time, was there someone who was really close to taking you? Like who was like a close second during those all those options you had to choose from?
Oh, like another rider they were considering?
No, another company that you were thinking of.
Oh, another company.
Yeah.
You know, I think the next one in line for me, choice-wise, might have been Trek.
Whoa, so you come in a Trek guy.
Yeah, I remember being like so mentally distraught because I did not want to make the wrong choice. And I was like, I remember like writing down the pros and cons of each company. And, granted, I was, I think 18 at the time, maybe even 17. So it was like, it felt like the biggest decision I was ever going to make in my whole entire life. So I wanted to make sure it was the right one. And I felt like I had it weighed out pretty good to where it was like Haro was number one, and then I feel like Trek was the second one. It had to do with like, a bunch of variables like pay, travel budget, bike and components and stuff. And Haro obviously made everything, and they came to the table with travel budget, able to send me to contests and stuff. And the other thing too is I was going to be teammates with Mirra, which was like massive. I was just like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So, and I had already had like conversations with Mirra, not about riding for Haro, but he was, he had invited me out to like come visit him in Greenville and hang out. And I was just like, dude, this is crazy. And so, with all that stuff kind of rolling into one, I was like, man, this kind of all makes sense. So yeah, Haro was the pick. But I remember like Mongoose, it was funny because they were at the time based out of Morgan Hill, which was just outside of the town I grew up in, which was Los Gatos. And I remember going down there and meeting with them, and it was like they were more offering me kind of like a position in the office to like help them develop their BMX bikes rather than to be like an athlete and travel and compete. And I remember getting like kind of the offer from the guy, and I was like, well, I get it. You guys want me here in the office in the clock hours and all that stuff. But I was like, I really am interested in competing. Would you guys have any like travel budget? And he was like, well, yeah, we might be able to send you like one or two. And I was just like, I don't think we're speaking the same language on this one, And I remember talking to Fuzzy Hall afterwards because he rode for Mongoose at the time, and he was like, how'd it go? And I was like, they kind of like offered me like a job, which was really nice, but like I was really hoping to kind of just be like an athlete. And I remember him going like, oh my God, dude, I can't believe they did that. I told them not to do that. They mentioned they wanted you for that, but I told them not to do it. And I was like, yeah, I don't think it's going to work out.
Yeah, that would have been a waste of talent for sure.
Yeah, so I like I said, stuck with Haro, and I feel like it's a pretty good decision. There's not many riders out there that have been with the company for, I think it's like 23 years I've been with them. So
nice, congrats.
Can we expect anything for your 25th year anniversary? Do you think they might release a bike or anything?
I don't know. We've had some talks, and honestly, if we were going to do something, we'd have to kind of start thinking about it now because it kind of takes that long to develop bikes and put stuff out and working on them. They're working a year ahead. And now with all the crazy stuff happening out in China and the world, and things might be getting, produced, it's like we probably need to start working on it now. But that'd be nice. Like I said, like that's a quarter century. It'd be cool to celebrate something like that.
Honestly, I think if you bring it up to them, they'd probably, they'd do it for sure.
Yeah, we've had talks. It's just nothing really in like detail about what that would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the companies that you were recently sponsored by, it's been a couple of years actually, but is Space Brace, Mike Gray's ankle brace company. So how did you meet, Mike, and how did you get involved with Space Brace?
I met Mike, actually the very first time I met him, we were all riding Pat Casey's ramp, filming for like a little Haro edit. And I didn't know much about him. I knew that he shredded, and that was kind of it. So we got to hang out and ride, and I just remember being like really, really impressed with him. And also because I knew he was like a street guy, but he got on Pat's mini ramp and just like destroyed it. Like just did like one of the biggest moves of the whole weekend too. Like it was actually in the edit. He did like a massive 540 bar spin over the spine, came in fakie and pulled it. And I was just like, dude, this kid is like the real deal. Like that was so gnarly. So that was like honestly my first impression of him. And then we actually went like on some Haro like sales meeting trips and stuff like that and hung out, and just like a solid guy, like really fun to hang out with, just good to talk to. And so that was like kind of like how I really got close with Mike. And then the timing was crazy because he had hit me up one time and was like, hey man, like do you use ankle braces? And I was like, no, but I think I'd like just gotten back from my first Joyride event, and it had just done a number on my ankles. And so I was getting ready to like put an ankle brace back on, which was, I probably had one that I'd used 10 years before. And it was all ratty and stuff. And I was like, no, but I'm looking, I'm probably going to start wearing one because my ankle would be. He's like, oh, well, I'm starting this thing called Space Brace. And I was like, dude, send me one and I will use it, And so we just basically started working together with that. And, they're good braces, man, especially the second version. Like, I'm really, really impressed with that because just the ease of putting it on and stuff like that. It's really nice. But yeah, man, he's such a good dude. And I just love being able to help him out and support him, what he's trying to do.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because Mike is actually pretty local to here. We had him on the show recently, along with Jordan Bonifacio, who built Pat Casey's ramp. And it's just so cool to hear about Mike's, story about Space Brace and how it all started. And it's really cool to see, a BMX company run by BMX riders, like for BMX people. And it's really interesting that it's taken, the whole like action sports scene by storm. Like, it's not just BMX guys anymore. It's, dirt bike people, mountain bike legends like Jordy Len and, all these other crazy people, wakeboarding, everything. It's really cool. And I love the fact that it went that successful for Mike. And I think that he absolutely deserves, the way that it went. Like he put everything he had into it, and that's awesome.
Yeah, he's a hard worker too. So it wasn't like he just fell in place and all work. He hustled. So, I give it to him for that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So something I was really into when I first got into BMX was your show Getting Awesome. I have to hear about how this started.
Yeah, that was a really fun project. Basically, there's a company called Network A, and they were looking to start up kind of like YouTube channels, and I think it was like right when they kind of figured that, if they were, invest in riders or athletes and have those athletes kind of create the content that they could sort of, come up on advertising dollars. And I think, I don't know, I never really got too into it as far as like knowing why they want to do it, but I just know that they gave me a budget to kind of just do kind of whatever I wanted with it. And I just started brainstorming these really crazy ideas and things that I thought would be really fun. And, eventually created the title called Getting Awesome. And there was a song that matched up perfectly with the name of it. And so I got permission to use that for the opener. And I don't know, it all like kind of started coming together. I found some filmers that were local to Santa Cruz and started working with them. And it was just a really fun project. Honestly, it was just, I didn't really have too many people telling me what to do. And I could just be as creative and as goofy and wild as I wanted. And that was kind of the premise, is just like come up with some ideas of fun stuff. And then a lot of these things, I needed to kind of bring on my brother Shea, who is a bit of a mad scientist, to try to figure this stuff out. But, like we had a wakeboard bike and we made that work. And, but the barspin bike, like you've mentioned, that was like the season or the series finale, basically the last one we filmed. And that one was just like, I'm so happy we did that, because it still comes up to this day. People are like, that was insane. Like, I still can't believe you guys did that. But it was terrifying. Like, it was honestly terrifying. And for those that haven't seen it, it's still on YouTube, so you can Google Getting Awesome barspin bike. But it literally was just like a remote controlled powered bike that did bar spins. So we had hooked up like a starter motor from a CB750 motorcycle and hooked that to a belt that basically like would turn the handlebars, like the whole front like cockpit. And it worked great, but it was almost like it worked too good, because the torque that engine had on it was just like next level. Imagine the torque of trying to turn an engine over to start it, and that was spinning this super light set of handlebars and forks. And so it was definitely way overpowered, but that's kind of the only thing we had to make it work. So we were like, all right, let's do it. So realistically, when my brother he was the one that was operating the remote control to get the bar spinning, he literally only tapped it for like tap, boom, like that was it. Like it wasn't like he was holding it down and let go. He literally was just like one without and then let go. And that was how fast it went. And if you would have held it for, an entire full second, it likely would have been like probably spinning like 4 or 5. And I likely would have probably ejected, because it was going so fast even then that like putting my hand in there, it would have probably broke my fingers. So it it was a pretty wild one. I'm definitely happy we got it done, but I can honestly say like it was quite possibly one of the most terrifying things to do because, I don't mind going up in the air and throwing the bars around, but when you trust somebody else to do it and you're trusting that all the, radio signals and mechanics of it all and the timing and everything works, it's like, it's a lot of trust to put in someone's hands. And like I said, it worked and it was awesome, but it was one of those things that as soon as we got it done, I was like a huge sigh of relief that A, it worked, B, I could be done with it. And that was just the end of the video. I was just like, man, that was quite an experience right there.
Do you think a remote control tail whip would be possible for that bike? Was that ever a consideration?
Do I think remote control what?
Tail whip for that bike?
Oh, tail whips.
Yeah.
That was like the first thing people mentioned was like, if you just hit that switch and like took your feet off, would it tail up? And as powerful as that motor was, yeah, I believe it would have. I believe it probably would have done 2 or 3, to be honest. Like that thing was next level. I'd never been a tail whip guy, and I was never like comfortable doing them myself. So I just feel like to have somebody else even try it. Hindsight, we probably should have like just even see if it would have worked, because that would have been pretty amazing. But that was like what a lot of people suggested, like, oh my god, like, do you ever think about like doing a tail whip with it? And yeah, it probably would have worked, but it probably would have been even more terrifying than the barspin one, to be honest, for me anyways.
Actually, that brings me to a question. So with track cycling, before you go on the track, like the velodrome, they do a bike check to make sure that you're not running motors. Are they doing that with freestyle right now, like in the UCI? Is that even a thought?
No.
Okay. So what you're saying is they should.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anybody trying to like do any kind of like mechanical doping or anything. Yeah. I don't know if it would help that much because all our speed is kind of generated by dropping in, and there's not a ton of pedaling where I feel like it would really give you that benefit. So I'd be really surprised if anybody was messing with anything like that, to be honest, just because I feel like track cycling, I get it. Mountain biking, I get it. Road cycling, I get it. Like that's pretty much all pedaling. That's all it does. So, if you have something that's kind of assisting you, even if it's just a little bit of energy over the span of however many miles they go, like, yeah, that makes sense. But for our stuff, like, we short bursts of 60 seconds, like that's all we really need, and that, how that kind of pedaling, like we're probably realistically pedaling for maybe 10 seconds out of it. So
yeah,
to me, I don't see that it would be a huge benefit, but with insane lelevel competition becomes, there's a lot of insane stuff that's happened, I'm sure.
Well, you never know in a couple years.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't go that direction, but yeah, you just never know.
Yeah, I feel like, the only person to jump on that bike and do a remote control tail whip would have to be Mike Spinner, get some quad whips in there, some 5 whips, all that.
Well, maybe, man, but that was the other thing is like Spinner's bikes were always pretty lightweight. A lot of the guys were kind of really shedding weight during that era, and that was like not a lightweight bike at all. Like, you have like a starter engine, so it would have been different. I think it would take a pretty versatile rider. Like someone that was just like a little bit of like, don't care, a little bit of crazy, and definitely maybe, Hucker. Hucker might have been a good guy to get on that bike, actually.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, is there any way you could make a remote control cliffhanger happen? I don't think so, but that would be insane.
You could probably put magnets on your toes and just see if it was, throw the bike out and see if it gravitates towards it. But yeah,
that's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah.
So I really liked the idea of the wakeboard bike. Do you think there could have been any improvements that would have made that work a little bit better?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, the hard part with that bike was, well, for one, the amount of drag it created, like, just by being in the water. Like, we snapped so many lines on that thing because when you crashed, it was just like, it was almost like a water parachute, So, like, a lot of those ropes, we would just have to like tie them back together, and they just like anytime you crash, it would snap. So that was one thing that we didn't think about. I was like, oh man, like you could literally feel the boat like jolt back, and then all that pressure be on the line, it would just snap the line. The other thing is we couldn't really steer it that well because it was just really hard to like kind of get the lean without your feet dipping in it. So we probably would have needed a much wider board. And honestly, it was happened so long ago, like, it's hard to even remember, like, us going through the process. I think in our mind, it was just like, hey, like, could we get this on the water? Like, would it work? And do you think we could do like a bar spin or some kind of trick on it to like kind of finish up the video? So we were really thinking long term. We were just kind of like, let's see if it worked, and if we can make a video from it, even better. But I mean, yeah, since then I'm sure somebody's kind of gotten into it and made like a legit bike that you could probably carve and jump a lake and all that stuff. But for us, it was just like, could we drag this behind a boat and make something happen? It was very, very kind of crude design, just make it work kind of situation.
Yeah, it worked out really well though. Like I just had the footage on the live stream there, and like you did the bar spin like perfectly, pretty much actually. It worked out really well. I wonder if like you mentioned having a wider board for when you're turning and whatnot. I wonder if the board had sat down even further, like a couple more inches. Maybe you guys would have been up a little higher and you could have carved a little bit, but I don't know if that would work.
Yeah, it's hard to say because then your whole front end would have been out of the water too, and then you literally would have just been able to spin the bars without having to like really hop. So there's definitely, I mean, like I said, there's so much you could have done with like distributing the weight differently, like adding bigger fins. I mean, all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you really wanted to kind of get in there and really engineer it, like, there was opportunities. But for us, it was just about getting the video done, having a fun day out on the lake and making it work. So if we got that done, and it was cool. I think my buddy still actually has the wakeboard bike. So, maybe it's something where he might take it out and see if it works. But I think I took it out a whole nother time outside of that because my friends wanted to go out. So we took it up there, and like I said, it's like a novelty thing. It didn't really work as well as, like for like really taking it out and like shredding it and, trying to start like some kind of new sport or something like that. It was definitely more of just like, like, could we do something on there? Like, like I probably could do a suicide. Do you think I could do a barspin? Barspin was actually terrifying because I was just so worried of, going super high speed behind a boat, or what it felt like a high speed anyways. And then, throwing the bars and not having them come around and then just being jolted, like,
Yeah.
Stomach into the handlebar end or something like that. I don't know. It just seems so much like, even though water is somewhat soft and stuff, it just seems so much more sketchy than actually just riding a bike and doing a bar spin.
Yeah, exactly. And like water can seriously fuck you up if you land the wrong way, like.
Oh yeah, you slap. That's why they have belly flop contests, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you also did an episode with Mike Rooftop Escamilla, where you built tall bikes and rode around Woodward West. At the start of the day, did you think you'd be jumping the mega ramp with those tall bikes?
Oh, I totally forgot we even did the mega ramp tall bike stuff. That's funny. Yeah, dude, that was wild. And that was kind of another one of those ideas that was like, do we really want to do this? Like, is this actually a good idea? Like, we're kind of getting into like some like kind of like jackass territory stuff where we're kind of like, trying to figure stuff out. And for that one, I invited Mike Rooftop Escamilla out to kind of help me with it. And he's like a stuntman, so I thought, that'd be kind of fun. And he's always up for an adventure, so he met me out at Woodward West, and we just started riding those things and just seeing what we could do. And it ended up being really, really fun because we didn't have to get super gnarly with it, but it was just like a really entertaining kind of fun day. And then the ultimate was like, yeah, I knew that I was going to have to go out to Mega Ramp and try to jump it. And I just remember Mike, I think the video goes like he kind of like hurt himself, and so he couldn't do it. But I honestly think that and that was like, he really told me he hurt himself, but I think he kind of faked it because he didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I kind of got the same feeling too.
I honestly, I feel like he really did, and he'll never admit it, but I think he really did because, I mean, like I said, it was one of those ideas. You're like, is this a good idea? Like, is this really smart to take this on Mega Ramp? Probably not, but I guess we committed to it. So I just remember going, okay, like I had been kind of like working my way up to it for a while, like speed wise, and I was like, okay, I know what I need to do to get the speed to clear it. So I just had to commit it. And I just remember going down, and then I think I still hung up quite a bit, but it bounced me almost perfectly to where like I was in the air and then I could like eject afterwards, and it wasn't that hard of a slam because I was just terrified because, I mean, crashing on Mega can hurt no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I was terrified that being that high up, that weird hang up, a weird bounce was going to make me fly all the way down the landing and then just basically land on the flat, which that was my worst fear, was just like, you know, after trying to jump 50 feet, you know, hanging up and getting bucked off the bars and then literally flying through the air for another 50 feet until like I had to crash onto something. And so that crash was actually like the best case scenario, which sounds really crazy, but like that was the best way it could have ended up crashing wise, because any other thing I could have done probably would have ended up a lot worse.
Yes.
So I was really happy in that way, and I was happy. I think I even might have broke the bike or something like that. So it was like there wasn't even a chance to go up and do it again. So it literally was like the best case scenario. Like I crashed, I survived, the bike broke, it was done.
It was
like,
a one and done situation.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna push the limits on that one because it just felt so weird. And like those bikes, I mean, we welded them together pretty good, but it was still like, I mean, the bikes on the bottom were just some like garage sale, you know, whatever mountain bikes. Like they weren't super heavy duty strong. They weren't meant to do that. So like every single time, you know, we did something that was a question, it was just like, well, like is this whole bottom bike gonna just like completely cave in and just like collapse? Like we just didn't know. So it wasn't like those things were indestructible by any means. It was just like, geez, how long are these things gonna last for, you know?
Yeah, and something I found really crazy about that is the fact that those bikes, like on the bottom, weren't, you know, the best quality bikes. Like you can tell just with the way that the fork was raked before you guys even jumped the bikes, like that it's not supposed to be jumped at all. But something I did.
No, those things have barely survived riding down the street, let alone jumping down a Mega.
Oh, absolutely. So something I did want to mention, though, is what do you think your plan was if you would have, you know, cleared the Mega Ramp instead of casing and bailing out? Like, you know, you got so much speed. Those bikes were brakeless, too, were they not?
Yeah, they were brakeless. Yeah, there wasn't a good plan in place, to be totally honest. Like I said, I just knew I didn't want to crash. Had I pulled it, yeah, I don't know. That's the thing, is like you're going so fast, I don't think I could have laid it down. And laying it down, I mean, it's a double tall bike, so that wouldn't have worked either, because I probably would have just like had a huge impact like on my side. I don't know. I honestly don't know what would have happened, and I guess I'm kind of glad I didn't find out.
Yeah, best case scenario there. We had Mike on the show quite a while ago, and I wish I would have remembered that video at the time, because I would have loved to ask him if he actually did hurt himself. But if I have him on again sometime, I will absolutely ask him.
All right.
Alrighty, Beatrice, what's the next question there for us?
So we're going to move on to other things now. So you had a playable character in the Dave Mirra Pro BMX video game series. How did that happen? Like, how were you approached to be a part of that game?
At that time, it was a pretty crazy, awesome time in freestyle, because there was just a lot of like these, like outside corporate companies that really wanted to be involved, in freestyle. And I think Tony Hawk, he had his video game. He might have had a couple of them. And I think it was just one of those things where it was like a matter of time before someone jumped in for BMX freestyle. And so that deal came along, and, you know, they asked me to be a part of it. And, you know, obviously I wasn't going to say no. And we just started working on stuff, and we had a bunch of meetings talking about, you know, like basically what we wanted the game to feel like. And Dave was honestly a lot more well-versed in video games than I was, and I'm still not like a huge gamer. But it was really cool to be in part of that project and that process and have them, you know, really want to get the input. And so Dave and Mike Laird, they were probably the biggest gamers of the group of us. And so they were constantly giving feedback based upon like what they did and didn't like from Tony Hawk, and what stuff we could bring over and what we should be doing and how tricks should look, and, you know, just talking about what levels. And I mean, it was a lot of really cool conversations. And then basically they wanted to do like motion capture with Dave and I, and to like make, you know, kind of like the moves, make it look like ours. And so they took us up to Woodward, Pennsylvania, and you know, basically up in Lot 8, they had all these sensors and all these things set up. They were like all this infrared blah blah blah. I don't even know, but they had us in these, like full body spandex suits with like Velcro reflective balls, like kind of put over us in strategic places, and then we would go up in the air and they would kind of record, the body movements with these reflective balls, and then they would play it back, and that's how they kind of did the 3D modeling, at least how the arms would move and stuff like that. So a lot of those moves on those games were actually us like doing those moves, which is really cool. And then they would basically like kind of get these 3D models of the riders and then kind of apply those models to those movements and have the riders doing the stuff. So some of the moves turned out pretty good. Other ones, they look kind of weird, but we'd always joke that, the ones that looked weird, like David would always be like, "Oh, that's the one that you did." And be like, "No, man, that was yours." Like Boggins looked like horrible. And so we would always joke about that because some of them they look just really weird. But I think that's just, some stuff at that time got lost in translation, between the making of the game and when we actually captured. So, but that game's had such a huge impact, like it's really wild. Like I think, I don't know, a few months back I made like a little post about, the game or something like that. And just so many people are like, "Oh my God, this was my whole entire childhood." Like I spent so many hours on that. Like I remember the songs and the soundtracks and, like it was so rad, like this level. It's crazy hearing how many people, just really enjoy that game. And so to be a part of that project in itself was like, such a cool experience for sure.
Yeah, and something I did want to ask about was, did you have any say in the look of your character or in the game stats? I was showing those stats on screen a minute ago, and it's funny because, like, they've got, like, wall ride 4, and then, like, all these other, like, it's just all numbered. Did you guys have any say in that at all?
Yeah, so we got to, like, basically set our stats to basically, like, kind of mirror how we thought our riding actually was. So, if you're a guy that could lock into a manual and, then your balance was going to be high. And we could actually, I can't remember if it was like they gave us like a total number of like, okay, you could like 20 points or something like that. And then you were supposed to distribute that through, jumping, or I can't even remember the categories, but like balance is definitely one of them, and then you could like kind of rate it and then you could send it in. So that way it was like, you're rating yourself. And then as far as like outfits and stuff, like, yeah, we were allowed to pick like the shirt, the colors, and whatever else, or the shoes and stuff like that. So we had a lot to say about like kind of how we actually looked in the game. And I think I can't remember like if there was logos and stuff like that, but basically like, we were able to call out like, "Oh yeah, it's a Haro shirt," whatever like that. And so, so there was a lot of stuff that we liked. They gave us a lot of control, which is really cool because, I mean, they could just basically use Dave's name and, all our names and just basically put us on characters and stuff. But they really put in a lot of time to make it like, like legit, which is really rad. And I think the end product like turned out really well as well.
Yeah, so you mentioned you weren't really sure about all the different, like, categories they had. So in Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX, they had air, you were a 7, speed 3, spins 6, balance 5. In Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 2, you were an air 5, speed 6, spins 7, balance 4, technique 5, manuals 4, landing 4, wall rides 5.
Sounds like I got better between 1 and 2.
Yeah, apparently, eh?
It must have been practicing.
It's really interesting that they had that many like different categories for your stats in Freestyle 2. Like it's super cool that you were in that game in general, but like to see that they actually let you customize the way your character looks and rides, and they actually put in the time and the effort really shows that it was a passion project rather than just like a get quick like rich scheme.
Yeah, and I think too, like just with the success of like Tony Hawk's game and Dave's game, it's like it just made sense for them to try to make it that much better. I mean, if you look at like all the, like the Madden games and stuff like that, like it just becomes like you're almost watching like a real like kind of football game, So had they kind of stuck with it and just continued it, I imagine like with technology advancing and stuff like that, like the modern day Dave Mirra BMX freestyle game would look like just insane. It'd almost be like you're watching like a like an edit.
Yeah, and there was another category that we missed there. It was fart rating, and that was a 69.
Oh wow, yeah, wow, yeah. I can say I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you introduced your kids to that game yet? And do they and if they played it? Do they pick daddy or do they go with like another rider?
Sorry, we'll say that again.
So have you introduced that game to your kids yet? And have they been picking
Oh,
you or someone else?
I bought a PlayStation and the game on eBay, and it's been sitting in a box, and I haven't taken it out yet. It feels a little bit weird, like it's a little bit surreal, just because I mean there's so much history behind it for me, but I don't know, like I don't know how they would take it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think they probably think it's pretty cool, but I don't know. Now that we're all in quarantine, I probably should take it out and just have like a little game evening where they can you know throw me into a vert wall or something like that and make me slide over the place. They probably really enjoy that.
I think they would, yeah.
No, yeah, I haven't introduced it yet, but like I said, it's in the house, so
Yeah.
I just gotta take it out and set it up, and hopefully the eBay user I bought it from, is honest and it actually works.
Yeah, let's hope so. So let's jump back into your freestyle mountain biking stuff here. What are some of the things that you love about mountain bikes that you just can't get on a BMX bike?
Oh man, I feel like when I was doing the slopestyle stuff, the speeds and the distance and the height on those jumps were just I don't know, just next level, and like while it kind of exists in BMX, those bikes, the non-bikes and slopestyle, like they're just so better suited for like maintaining and holding that speed and stability in the air. And I always like kind of wondered if I could, if I had my BMX bike at some of those events, if I could like get through that course, like how it would feel, if it would feel absolutely insane or what. But yeah, like there's always like that rush of going through the jumps the first time on the slopestyle courses and feeling those speeds, because some of those things we were hitting like 30 mile an hour, and some of those lips were, like 13 feet tall, and like for us, like a 13-foot tall, like that's a vert ramp essentially, so, and that's, you're not really jumping off that, you're kind of going up and coming right back in, but like, you know that you're going to basically hit this 13-foot tall lip and, try to go a distance of, 25 feet. And it was just like, I never experienced anything like that in BMX. So to me, I kind of missed that feeling of like, being terrified and feeling those, like the wind and hearing different sounds and, like your helmet's whistling because the air vents, you're just hitting those speeds and just, I don't know, that kind of stuff I really, really miss a lot just because, I don't know, I feel like it's good to scare yourself, like, make sure you're still alive and stuff. And well, there's plenty of scary moments in BMX. Like that was just something I hadn't really experienced on like a 20-inch bike.
That year that you got third, it was in Whistler. That last drop is insane in general. I can't even imagine doing that on a BMX. Like even to think about maybe even trying that. So how did you accustomize yourself to those heights, because they're huge, and there's nothing. I don't think there was anything in BMX that could maybe prep you for that. So how did you get over that? How did you train for just that height, that distance, the speed that you had to deal with?
Yeah, honestly, it was kind of trial by fire.
Mm-hmm.
To be totally honest, I just had to try to. I mean, I knew I loved riding the bike. I loved like the adventure of relearning all my tricks on that bike and getting used to the way it felt and the dynamics of it. I really truly I found like a passion in that, and so when I started talking to the other guys that lived in Santa Cruz at the time in Aptos, like some of the guys that were like top dudes in the world, but I just didn't realize it because I just thought they were really fun to ride with. But not knowing that world, it was just like, oh, I'm like riding with like the top pros, like this is wild. But they were just like, yeah, dude, like you might be able to do all right. I just wanted to try it and started like kind of like, you should, man, it'd be cool. And I remember getting to like my very first diamond level event, which in the FMB world, which is their series, diamond level, you have to like qualify for and you have to be invited to. And so I think I got an invite for like a kind of like a special invite thing for this event in Germany. And I just remember getting there and seeing the course and just like thinking to myself, like, what did I do? Like, what did I get myself into? Because this stuff is so big, bigger than anything I've ever done on two wheels. And the very first thing that you had to start on was a drop that I think they said it was like 17 feet. And I was like, I've never done anything like this before. And so the very first thing you had to hit was this drop. And I was like, this is the biggest thing I've ever done. So, watching people, like dissecting how they're like, are they pumping? Are they pedaling? What are they doing when they go off the edge? Are they pulling up? Like, are they just riding off? And I just remember being like, dude, I flew all the way to Germany to come here. And if I don't do this, like, I'm going to be super disappointed. Like, I'm not going to do the walk of shame off of this, start ramp. Just like, I have to do this. So, and everybody's just like, dude, it's so easy. You just got to go off. So
it's so easy. Okay.
I just, but that's the thing is like, they were all used to this stuff, like they were all just like, oh yeah, how big is it? Okay, cool. Like, and they could see it the same way as I probably look at like a 10-foot quarter and like I look at the side and be like, yeah, this thing's going to ride nice. They were just like, yeah, this is going to feel good, and I was just like, so I remember going off and just like, my breath getting taken away as soon as my front tire left. Just like, you had this moment where you're just like, am I about to like really hurt myself?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this going to work? And then it worked. And I remember being like, woo, like this is amazing. And then, and then like you get to another part of the course because the courses are so long too that you don't really do like top to bottom all the time. You kind of dissect it. So you start at one point and you ride a portion of it, and then you go to the top and you ride the top portion. So I was kind of doing that same thing. And then I remember getting to like the last part of the course, and there was this big step down that was bigger, like the biggest jump I'd ever hit, biggest step down I ever hit. And I remember just like thinking like, oh my God, I just did the biggest thing I've ever done. Now I'm going to do this thing. Like this is the next biggest thing I've ever done. So having to conquer that fear. And that one literally led into the biggest double that I'd ever hit in my life.
Nice.
And so it was like this crazy just day where I was constantly one-upping what I had done on two wheels and scaring myself, but having this, like, these moments where it worked and having this, like, the most insane just, like, rush, just like, oh, my gosh, like, this is amazing, And so, I mean, how did I get acclimated? Like, that's literally it. Like, I didn't ride this stuff on a regular basis. Like, so you would go to the contest and you would, like, kind of, like, get yourself pumped up to do this stuff. And then you just have to trust that your skills were enough to make it work, and that's honestly how I got used to it. And that's how I kind of maintained throughout the whole entire, my whole entire mountain bike career, if you will. Like, it was like literally just like, well, this worked last time. Okay. Should be good this time too, and that's like how you had to kind of go at it. And for me anyways, like some guys had stuff at home they could practice on and stuff. But for me, it's like, I didn't ride anything that big at all.
Yeah, like Drew Bazanzan, like he made do with the situation with putting like picnic tables at Joyride so that he could get used to the height, right? Like and the drop. What I'm sensing is just this like new love for biking that you got with mountain biking, which is like it's so great as a new rider, right? So I want to also ask, like, you brought your own style when you started mountain biking, but were there people that you looked up to when you entered the scene?
I did. Yeah. I mean, I remember watching, like, as soon as I realized that I wanted to try competing, I remember watching and, like, going on, like, Pink Bike and, like, watching videos and getting familiar with, like, the riders and, the courses and what the obstacles were and what it might look like or feel like. And just, like, really doing, like, a lot of, like, homework and visualizing kind of what it might be like if I ever got out there. And, I started, like, knowing people's names and, like, of course, like Brandon Semenuk, like he was just like, still is like a god on a bike, but, he was like, a guy that was like, wow. And the crazy thing was that I had ridden with him a bunch in Aptos, but didn't really know who he was, so like, I knew he was good and that was obvious and stuff, but I just didn't know like the extent of his like amazingness, if you will. And then, like Brett Reeder, Nikolai, I knew from BMX, so he was a familiar name and face. But, like, those were kind of like the guys that were really pushing it. And so those are the guys that I wanted to try to, like, not model myself off through because their styles were different from mine, but just realized that if that was the level that I needed to ride at to try to be good, then I needed to watch what those guys were doing,
Mm-hmm.
And so And then through being out there and watching them, and then meeting new riders and stuff, and one of the guys that like locally when I was living in Santa Cruz that really helped out a lot was Greg Watts, and we actually had very, very similar styles of riding, very similar styles, like really like a lot of bar spins, handlebars, suicide tricks, 360s and flips. Like, we actually had a lot of fun sessions riding together where we were kind of like pushing each other to learn these tricks that, we were kind of the only guys that could do it because we were the only guys running front brakes and using them in the air and stuff like that. So he was a big influence on the riding, but yeah, I mean, just looking at the courses and all that stuff, it was just like, whoa, this is wild, and these guys are doing really well. So I want to do what they're doing.
So I had a question for you. What are your thoughts on the new bikes that Garrett Burns and Ruben made? Those 20-inch mountain bikes, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I get the concept of it. It just looks like a lot of fun, to be honest. Like, I mean, I don't know if they were really doing a whole lot of stuff that they couldn't do, like on just a regular BMX bike. I mean, granted, like, I think a lot of the trails and stuff they were riding, like, it'd be really rough to do on a BMX bike. But I imagine that thing is probably a blast, and I mean, what a fun project too, like just kind of like cutting up a BMX bike and installing shocks and seeing if it would work. I mean, that's kind of like what I imagine they had the same feeling that we had when we were doing getting awesome stuff. Is just like, God, is this even going to work? And just like kind of having this like fun kind of project / journey to go down to see if it would work, and just kind of giggling the whole time that it's working or that things are panning out the way you thought they were gonna, and so yeah, in that sense, like, sounded like a really fun project. I mean, I don't know if it's, like I said, like I wanted to ride like my BMX bike on a slopestyle course, and that wouldn't have had any shocks. So I imagine if that would have worked, then yeah, their stuff would have worked too. But like I said, like that's just such a cool, I don't know, it's just a fun project to be involved in, just like, kind of that unknown. Like, are we wasting a bunch of time here, time and energy, or is this going to be something that's going to be awesome? I'm sure it turned out awesome.
Do you think we'll see a return to that world anytime soon? Because I know you're focusing on coaching this year. But yeah, mountain bikes, is there going to be a comeback for that?
I don't know, man. I honestly kind of got to the point where, the whole reason why I got into it was to see if I could do it. It was just sort of like this own personal journey that I was very fortunate that, my sponsors were willing to go along with it. And, I had good success, and I feel like I made like somewhat of an impact in that world when I was out there. I don't know. I felt like after I got that third place at Joyride, I kind of I think I proved to myself that it was like, yeah, you did it. Like you kind of like did what you said you wanted to do. And then with the whole Olympic push and stuff like that, like I kind of felt myself wanting to get back on the BMX bike. And so I spent another year kind of, it sucks to say, but I was like almost going through the motions. Like I was going to these big, massive mountain bike courses and not really 100% there, like not really, like hadn't really put a lot of time in, but was just kind of showing up and was like getting used to the bike again, like while I'm riding these 35-foot jumps and stuff. And I just felt like a lot of the same passion that got me into it kind of left as soon as I realized that I'd like kind of proven to myself that like, I was able to do it. So like that goal was kind of accomplished. And then, I kind of just started losing passion, want to be on the BMX bike again. So I don't know. I mean, I would kill to go to like Rotorua and ride that course. Like that was my favorite stop just because, the redwoods and you're just out there and the course kind of weaves in and out of the forest. And I would love to just go ride that course. Like that would be the dream, and not have to worry about competing and sending all these crazy tricks. Like I would just love to be out there with the boys. Like that'd be it. But as far as competing and stuff, I don't know, man. Like I won't say no, but it's just so gnarly too. Like,
yeah.
like I thought it was crazy to just kind of try to just switch at like 36, 37 years old. And I'm 41 now, and I don't ever do like any kind of age limitations. But, at some point, some of those crashes I took, I was like breaking knee braces in half and stuff like that. So, it's just next level. I think I like what when I'm at now, what I'm doing on the BMX bike and stuff, but I don't know. It'd be pretty tall order to try to get back into the competition series over there and try to get back into that diamond level.
So another question about mountain bikes, and then we'll move on. What are your thoughts on Red Bull Rampage and those downhill guys?
Yeah, that stuff's amazing. I don't have any business being on that mountain except for maybe just having a couple frosty cold ones and watching people send themselves down the mountain. But I don't know, man. That's the stuff that they do. And it's honestly kind of my favorite time of year when you see what people are posting on Instagram and you get to watch them trying those first hits and what they're comfortable. Well, I can't even say they're comfortable doing it because it's terrifying for them too. But what they can visualize and what they can, basically, they'd look at a drop and they look at the run up and they can calculate in their head that this seems like it's going to be enough. And you see people are just hitting these first hits, 50 and 70 foot drops, and they're landing perfectly. Like that, to me, like you can't just go out and like study, like read a book or like any of that stuff. It's like that's years and years and years of experience, like, kind of like combined into one moment, And so to me, watching those guys create their lines and create these massive hits, and then they're the ones that also have to figure out how fast you go and, if everything's going to line up right. And like, to me, that's like the ultimate. Like, it's so insane. And there's so much respect for them. Like, not just from me, from anybody that rides two wheels. It's just like, dude, like, it's just so gnarly. I really, really hope one day I can just go out there and watch competition live, because I feel like that's one of those things that, to be able to climb up that mountain and look at these hits and see what they're about to like do, it's just like, dude, I want that kind of perspective, at least, so when I'm watching it every year after that on the TV, I can be like, yeah, these dudes are certifiably nuts.
Yeah, absolutely mind-blowing. We have those guys, honestly, they blow my mind every year. I look at their clips, and Rampage was something that I've always watched like pretty much every year. And it just gets crazier and crazier. You got people backflipping into step downs that are like 60, 80 feet. Like, just doesn't make any sense, Like, definitely extreme talent, extremely skilled, and even better at, like, putting themselves in, super uncomfortable situations and being able to kind of move around it,
It's a lot of trust, too, right? Because they have to build their own, like, jumps and ramps and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sometimes, like, when they go to a new site, they have to go up there and they have dig crews, and, they're actually, like, sometimes in harnesses, and they're belaying down and digging, like, pulling rocks out. I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. Like, it's such a gnarly event. Like, yeah, they do everything themselves with their crew, and then they test it and ride it, and it's like, yeah, nothing like I've never seen anything like that before.
So we have a viewer question here. So this is from Super Fun Happy Land. Going with the see if I could do it. Any other unfinished business bucket list tricks that you would want to do or achieve?
Yeah, there are. I've been working on this hard edit, and some of them are in there. I don't know when it's going to get done though, but I've been working on it for a while. 1080. I've always really wanted to pull that one, and I've never really never landed it. I've always, like, in the foam pit, they seem to work, but I never rolled away from one. So that's definitely one. Back in the day, I always thought flip fakies would be like this trick that I would just would feel so insane and so amazing. I remember going. This is a long time ago, but going in Greenville to the skate park there called JC Park. And just one day deciding, like, I'm going to do it. And, back in the day, like, people did it on, like, kind of like half pipes and stuff. And nobody's really doing it on, like, smaller 6-foot quarters like they do now. But, like, it was always, like, you had to go on, like, a bigger quarter. So I found the biggest quarter at the park, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. Like, and so I remember going there and just being like, here we go. And then just trying it over and over and over. And, like, landing front wheel and sliding down my face and just, like, just bad crashes for like a whole afternoon, just being like, ugh. And I remember just being like, yeah, this isn't anything like I thought it was going to be, you know, and like pretty much giving up on it, you know? And so there aren't a ton of tricks that I'm like really, really want to do, but there's new tricks that are happening nowadays that I think would be fun to either do like that or my own little twist on it. So, there's always stuff that's like kind of on the rise and I want to get done. It's just a matter of having the right opportunity, the right setup, and, you know, the kind of like that right, atmosphere to do it too. So, I mean, there still is stuff, but 1080 is definitely one of them. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, I think you got to prove to the world that you can teach an old dog new tricks, you know? I think 1080, it's got to be so difficult, but I think you could 100% pull that. You're 100% capable.
It's there. I just got, like I said, I got to find the right setup and the right opportunity, and then, you know, I don't know how happen, but, you know, it's just got to be right.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see that Haro edit. So, whenever it comes out, take your time with it. I want to see some new Ryan Nyquist stuff.
Sounds good.
Beatrice?
Yeah, so we're gonna transition out of mountain biking. Even though I love hearing about it, I do want to talk about the unit though. What's the history behind the unit? How did that come to be? When did it first open?
The unit was, oh man, I'm gonna have trouble citing years on this one. I want to say the unit kind of came about in like somewhere around 2004, 2005, and basically Mirra had just basically built himself a warehouse, an indoor spot, and it was just like one of those things where I was like, man, that'd be really cool to do. Like, I kind of want to have my own spot too, and so after seeing him build his own spot, I was like, man, like I think I could do this, and so I looked into it and tried some stuff out and found a place to do it, and I was like, yeah, all right, pull the trigger. So, you know, once the building was up, I started working with Nate Wessel on design, and he and I, his vision. I mean, this is like kind of like my first initial, like, I don't know, like, I guess shot at like designing a park, and mine was literally like, put a box jump here, you know, we'll put a quarter pipe in front of it because you're gonna need speed for it, and then put a quarter pipe after it, and hey, it'd be cool to have like a foam pit over here. It was like, you know, like just imagine like having like Legos and just moving like blocks around, and each Lego represented like an obstacle. It was like very, very basic. And so then Nate comes back where he's like, well, I was kind of thinking more like this, and it was like, it looked like a theme park with roller coasters, and it was just like this thing is like, oh, everything was connected with four corners, and there was like 17 spines, and at one point there was like a capsule, and like, I mean, his drawings were just like wild, and I was like, dude, like, I don't think this is gonna fit into the budget, man. Like, this is, like I was kind of thinking something like real. He's like, listen, man, and I remember specifically, he's like, you build something more along the lines of what I'm talking about, dude. This will make you a better rider. This will make you better handling your bike and better riding courses and stuff. And I remember hearing that and being like, all right, man. So like a couple more designs later, we went back and forth, and we finally settled on one design, which ended up being the unit. And it was a far departure from what I thought I was going to do initially, but like, I mean, that place was just, it was just a dream, you know, like it was one of those places where you could go there and not feel like riding bikes whatsoever, and you didn't have to even leave like the coping. You could stay all below and just ripping around bull corners and speed and just fun, fast stuff. Like it was just such an amazing place to ride. And then on the other hand, if you wanted to get gnarly, there was tons of things to get crazy on. Like there was stuff that we always talked about doing that never got done, you know, because it was just so, it'd be so crazy, you know, like Dead Man stuff where it's just like, oh, like, but that was how that place is unique, is just like any kind of riding. Like, you know, like eventually I took my kids there and they loved the place, and they, you know, they were just like beginners, and it was just like, man, this is so cool that we can ride the same stuff and have a really fun time riding the same ramps. And that's what I kind of loved about it. It's just like, for whatever style, whatever level, whatever, you know, whatever you felt like that day, like the unit worked for it. And I don't know. And then just having like a place that like my friends could go and ride, people from out of town could come and ride. It was just, I don't know, just such a cool thing to have done, you know. It was, I don't know, just, I'm really, really happy I did it.
Yeah. Did the park change much over the years, or did it kind of stay the same design that you guys originally built?
The main Yeah, I'd say like 98% of the park stayed the same the entire time. The only thing that really changed was we would kind of move these vert walls that were in front of the foam residue down around a little bit, and that was based upon like I had initially built like a 2-level area just to chill in behind the vert walls, but nobody really wanted to go back there because you couldn't watch anybody ride. So eventually we tore all that out and then built like this. We call it like the chill pad, which is like kind of like this area that I'm sure you guys. I don't know, in any videos if you've seen it, like, but it's just the area like that kind of overlooked the entire park, where you could just go and sit. We built this little room with an air conditioner in there, so you could kind of like go and escape the heat. But those are the only things that really changed. Everything other than that, everything stayed exactly the same. And when we were tearing it down, actually, we started taking off like stuff, and like people that helped out with it a bunch, like wrote their names on pieces of plywood and stuff like that. So it was like pretty crazy to see that, you know, like that many years later. I think it was like 13 years or something like that. It was like, yeah, like it was still like the way it was the day we built it.
What's the like craziest trick to date that was done at that place? If there, I mean, I would imagine there's so many bangers throughout the years, but like, is there one thing that just really stands out?
Oh man, I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one because I thought I couldn't even tell you the crazy stuff because half the time I was living in California and I just had friends with keys and they were just going in there and riding. So, I mean, I just remember seeing some of the craziest stuff I saw was like one of them wasn't even pulled, but this guy, I can't remember his name. He went for a flip over this hip and went so high and just ejected, right? So he like basically jumped out of the flip, and then he landed like pretty harsh on the ground. And then his bike was still up in the air, and his bike came down and actually landed on both wheels.
What?
Which is pretty odd, but when it hit, the impact of the bike landing, both tires got flat tires, and he wasn't even on it. So
wow.
It double flatted his bike from just falling so high in the air, and I've never seen anything like that ever happen. So I was like, "Whoa, that was crazy."
I can't imagine how high he would have been for that then.
Yeah, it was a hard crash. I mean, he got up and limped away, but like just the fact that his bike got a flat tire or 2 flat tires from just the impact, I was like, "Whoa, okay, that was pretty nuts." And then, and that 9-foot quarter on the deck of it kind of morphed into like this little roll-in. And I remember him jumping off another quarter, landing on the deck of the 9-foot quarter, and then using that kind of roll-in to flip off of, but flip all the way down back to the ground, and then land in like a quarter. And I just remember jumping that and getting the guts up to like bar spin it, and to see him do that, I was just like, oh my god, like that is such a dead man crazy trick. Like, and I believe he pulled it. This is years and years ago, but. And then, you know, like Josh Harrington had some amazing video parts in there where he was just like doing some wild nose wheelie to bar stuff. And I don't know, it's just this, yeah. I mean, more for me, like the memories are just like the good times. Like I had my bachelor party there and we had like a demolition derby in the front with 3 cars, and we had what seemed like an endless amount of Rockstar cans, and people were throwing Rockstars at the cars while they're banging into each other. And like I had spray painted my face, and my brother spray painted his teeth, and we had like a kind of like a ninja course that came from the outside, went through the inside, and yeah, just stuff like that. Like that's to me just like all those fun times. Like that's more good memories from that than just like the crazy bike ride that went down.
I don't know if you want to share this, but I remember when we were sitting at Joyride, you were telling me about someone who flew out to help you break apart the ramp. Are you able to share that story with the listeners?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay.
I'll leave that one alone.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that one alone.
How long did it take to like rip everything apart?
How long was that? It was about 2 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to hire it's funny. I had to hire ramp builders to take it apart because we took it apart in sections. And the hope is, I mean, the whole entire place is sitting in a warehouse in Kinston, North Carolina, and the hope is that the guy can find a place to put it all back together. But we had to take it apart in a way that it could be put back together. So I hired Brian Corrigan and Ron Kimler, and they came out and we hired, rented a bunch of machines and, and basically labeled everything, took photos as best we could, and just, it was 2 weeks of hell, like just hell. It's like it was one of the things where it was
heartbreaking.
like,
I'm sure too.
well,
Yeah.
I was about to say it started out very sad and somber, and then when you're in the middle of it and you realize that you have a deadline, you have to get this thing done by, it starts becoming like a nuisance. You're like, dude, just get done. Like you start almost wanting to just like, douse it with gasoline and light a match because it's like, man, this sucks. Like, like it's heartbreaking to start like taking the first screws out and stuff like that because you're like, man, this is my baby. And then when you're in the middle of it, you're like, dude, it can't go fast enough. Like you can't get this place down fast enough. So, it sucked, and I miss it, but at the same time, it was almost a relief to have it gone too, because, well, I loved having it. I loved being able to provide a place to ride and stuff like that. Like I realistically only had that place, when I was actually local for maybe 4 years, like I lived in Greenville for about 3 while it was up, and then I moved to California, and then I would go back and visit and ride, and like my buddy Rob had a key, and he was kind of like the major caretaker of it, but it wasn't like an open public skate park, so it was just like, I had him look after it, and then I moved back to North Carolina, but I lived in Wilmington, and I was there for maybe a year and a half before we started taking it down, and so it was like pretty weird to think of it as like, like I only really had access to it like where I could ride every day for about 3 years, maybe 4 years, maybe. And so like really in that sense, it was like almost, I mean, it was almost other people's parks rather than it was mine, So, so when it came time to like, when I actually decided to take it down, it was a little bit of a relief too, because it was just like, all right, well, it's finally not going to be like a, thing looming over my head as like a liability or worrying if someone's going to go in there and hurt themselves or whatever, because I mean, that's part of, owning your own ramps is like, that's a big part of it. And you hope that everybody understands that there's a risk, but, I had a family and I just didn't ever want that to be something that came back and bit me in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
So a good question for you. Was there any thoughts of, turning it into a public park so that, it would be a place like Joyride 150 or, like a local indoor skate park? Was there any thoughts of that ever or not really?
Yeah, we had thought about it, but just the logistics of it, like, I mean, skate parks, I mean, unless you are like a Joyride 150 where you have like an amazing like bike, scooter, skate shop that goes along with it and you can rent things out and stuff, like it's a really hard business model to make successful, So, and I just didn't feel like having to worry about, granted, because like I'm not local, so I'm in California, employees and having people open it on time. And, and the other thing too is like the layout of the park, it's really meant to be ridden one at a time, whereas like you talk about like a joyride, there's so many different zones and areas and levels and stuff. It was just like, it wasn't really something that was ever meant to be like a public park. It was really meant to be like a playland for, these high elite level riders. So it didn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, I did let, like Mike Nyquist would go in there and run clinics and stuff like that, and that was always really fun and nice. But it just didn't ever really seem like a place that was going to be like conducive to like being a skate park. It just never really seemed that way. And to me, it almost created more of a headache with like insurance and liability and all this stuff I was going to have to get into to open it up. And I was like, this thing, it never really made money in the first place, and I couldn't imagine it making enough to cover the cost of like what it would actually cost to operate.
Yeah.
So I just was like, I always just kept it closed door.
Yeah, I always wonder how places like Joyride and, like Ray's keep up with the bills, because Joyride's in Toronto, which is probably the most expensive city in all of Canada. And it's a huge building. And, like there's a lot of people that seem to think that, like Red Bull probably puts in a good portion of money and all these sponsors really help pay for it. But I think the big fact is that they have such a great staff that's so big, and they have such a park that's, versatile for everything. And they do summer camps and everything every summer. And I think that's the only way that a lot of parks are, indoor parks are lasting right now.
Yeah, Joyride's really unique, though, in the sense that, like, they're attracting a lot of corporate people as well. Like, if they want to do just a day of like team building. Like they would go to Joyride for that. Whereas other parks, you don't really think of that. They just have a really good like marketing model to their business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's good to support your parks. You know, if you have one in town, I mean, I don't know. I always try to pay when I go places that it's a park where it's like they're like, I don't know. When we were in Estonia, like they had the spot of town, and it's like, dude, that place is amazing, but nobody really uses it. And then all these pros show up and like, yo, let me in. I'm like, oh, just pay the money, like, because if you guys like coming here, like, you should really make sure it stays, and that means paying. So, it's just important. But yeah, I mean, it's kudos to those guys, man, because it's a hard business model to make work, and Joyride and all those other parks out there. It's like they're doing a great job of it.
Absolutely. So, after the unit closed, I don't know if this was after or before, but you built a backyard ramp. And I got to say, your backyard ramp looks fun as fuck. Like, it looks so cool. There's like that really big quarter into that mellow quarter that you always do the fives on. That looks awesome. But I really, really like the long and low transfer that you have from the kicker to the resi landing. I think that's such a unique way to use your space,
Yeah, I that's like my little slice of heaven, man. I love it back there. It's in the middle, like, it's a wooded area, so it's just, midday when I'm usually out there in the mornings, it's pretty quiet, it's birds chirping and stuff, and I don't know, I love it. I love being back there. And yeah, like the layout, I didn't have a ton of room, so I tried to make do with what I have, and I feel like it turned out great. Like like I said, that long and low, that was an idea I actually had at the unit, because I had a similar problem with trying to get speed to go. There's a quarter after the box resi that would go into the foam pit, and I always thought it'd be great if we could just get a little bit more speed. And so I always thought about building like a little kicker to use it as like a long and low, so you go at it with more speed, land, and have more speed for the quarter. But I never actually did it when I had it. So when I started designing this one, I realized, like, hey, like this would be a good opportunity to have just like a little small kicker on the side, so that way if I have this 10-foot quarter and this landing, I'm not going to be governed by how much speed I can just, how much speed I need to clear the box perfectly. I can just like back this kicker up and just go even faster. And that's pretty much how it works, like when the resin's not on there, or resin not on the box, I can go, like, I can fly at that thing, and that's like honestly like probably the thing that feels the best on that whole entire ramp is just getting that long and low and just having that pump we land perfect, and just knowing like, okay, like I'm going to go like 10 feet on this 10-foot quarter. And then you have this landing on the side of it that's mellower. It just makes you relax, and it's just, I don't know. It's just a dream. Like that thing right there is just like, I'm so happy that got built and it got built right, because like that feeling never gets old.
I'd assume that you designed the layout, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Did you build the ramp yourself with some friends, or did you hire like a ramp company to come in and build that?
Yeah, I would love to say I built it. I honestly, I love building stuff, but that was just such a big project, and then, I just don't have the time to commit to doing that stuff anymore. So I hired Ron Kindler, and he brought a crew up. Well, I guess he came down, and a couple of guys came up from Florida. But yeah, they built it. It took them about a week and a half, and then they had to leave, and they came back for like another week and a half and finished it up. So. Yeah, it's incredible quality-wise. Every ramp feels perfect. We did some really cool stuff, so I have different options out there for riding, and it never really gets old for me, anyways. I just every time I go out there, I just have a blast. I can go out there and do tricks, or I can just go out there and float the place and just go fast and high. And I don't know, that's just what I wanted. Was just after having something as crazy as the unit, where it was like this masterpiece of design and a huge amount of space and stuff, I just was like, I just want something basic, something I can ride and just go out there and have fun. And also thinking about my kids, and for them being able to go out there and have fun on it. And my middle son seems like he's really into it, so he's starting to be able to like kind of jump up on top of the box and starting to hit little transfers and stuff like that too. So it's really, really cool, and I think it just fits my needs pretty perfectly right now.
Are there any plans in the horizons for additions to that ramp at this point?
No real plans. I mean, we like kind of joked about it, like, oh, it'd be sweet to like build a hip off of this and do this and that. And I don't know, man. Like, while it would be fun, I just don't know if I need it right now. You know, like this is serving me so well, and if I really need to hit hips or whatever like that, there's a couple different parks, or I can go to, you know, I can drive to Raleigh for the day and ride out there. It's just, I don't know. I just love the simplicity of it. And to be honest, like it's funny how it works, but you know, this setup is very similar to the very first like skate park that I had, you know, in San Jose, the Ramp Club, and that's like, it's crazy how, you know, I went from having that and I rode that all the time, and then, you know, going through these different setups and riding Woodwards and having a unit and riding all these crazy awesome setups all throughout the world. And then, you know, it's funny like to go back and be like, all right, well, I'm going to do it for myself again. And just the layout of it, when I started really designing it, I didn't think about it, but like it's very, very similar to what I kind of grew up riding, which is kind of, I don't know if it's poetic or what you want to use, but it's pretty cool how it ended up that way.
Yeah, that's super cool. You know, like we've seen a lot of backyard ramps come out in the last couple of years. You know, like Drew Bezansen's ramp looks insane. Mike Varga's ramp is crazy. Pat Casey's is insane. Do you think this is like starting to be a thing where instead of just having like a mini ramp, people are having entire skate parks in their backyard?
Yeah, I mean, it is funny because I think for a while there were a lot of like backyard setups. You know, you had like the T1 ramp. You had, I mean, in Greenville we had like 3 or 4 backyard setups. You know, and it was just like people really kind of invested in themselves and invested in their time and what they were passionate about. And then I think as that generation kind of, you know, went away, like, you know, Mirra had his warehouse that shut down, my warehouse closed down, T1 ramp went away. Like there was a lot of stuff that was just like closing down, you know. It was like, man, that's crazy. But I think that it's cool to see riders step up and kind of put something into their own riding and invest in themselves, you know, because I mean, ultimately, if they want to have a career in it, they need to kind of really have a place where they could really dial in their skills. And I don't know, it just makes me happy that people are doing that again. You know, like Nick Bruce just finished his place. You know, like Daniel and Sears has had to finish his place for a while. You said Drew, and it's just, I don't know, there's some really cool local backyard kind of spots that are going up, and it makes me happy to see because, I don't know, it just makes me feel like it's still alive, you know. Like for a while there, when every ramp is starting to get torn down, or every park is getting torn down, it's like, makes you sad, you know, it makes you think like, oh man, like what's going on? And then, you know, when people start building stuff up again, it's like, all right, here we go.
Awesome. So in an Ally Sports video, you went to Woodward West and rode the mega ramp. Now, I would assume this definitely wasn't your first time riding the mega ramp. Can you remember the first time that you did a backflip over the mega ramp and a 360?
Yeah, it probably was not that long before I filmed that video, to be honest. That video that you're talking about was basically, I got kind of interested in riding the mega ramp. The Xgames was doing like an international Xgames where they were going all over the world and doing spots and stuff like that. Like you know, there's Germany and Spain and stuff. And so they were setting up mega ramp at all these events, and I was like, well, if I'm going to all of these anyways for park, I might as well think about riding mega too. So I hit him up. It's like, hey man, like, you know, what are the chances of me riding? He said, well, why don't you go and ride them and show some video? We can give you some alternate spots in the meantime, but you know, you kind of need to prove yourself that you want to do this. And I was like, cool, sounds good. So I went out there thinking I was gonna, you know, just basically go on there and do the stuff I knew how to do and slowly adapt to, you know, the different stuff. And so, yeah, flip and 360 were my first, like, kind of go-to tricks. So flipping it is probably the easiest thing to do because you just lean back and you have so much speed and time, it just works. 360s, though, are always harder, although I had done it, I think, at one of the old school jams at Woodward West during, like, the mega ramp session. And while I pulled it, it was like super sketchy, but I just figured, oh, like, okay, well, I'll just get it dialed in, you know, and I'll go out there. So we went out to Woodward to film it and do a whole little video thing with it. And I honestly just thought I was going to breeze through it. And so my plan was, you know, I'm going to flip it 3 times. Because for me, it's like if you can do something 3 times in a row, it means that you've got it pretty much solid. So I was going to flip it 3 times, and I did. And I was like, okay, I'm going to 360 3 times. And then in my head, I'd already moved on to the next thing, which was like I was going to basically start moving towards the quarter, and I wanted to throw a 540 on the quarter. And I was just going through the motions. I was just, nothing was stopping me. I just thought this was all going to be really easy. So I went up for the 360, and basically I think I went I went too fast. But I over-rotated, overshot, and crashing on that thing, it just melted my flesh. And that might sound dramatic, but that's honestly what it was doing. Like, my shoe fell off. It, like, burned through my top of my sock and eventually through my skin. It burned, like, side of my ankle off. Like, it tore it literally melted my gloves and burned through the palm of my hand. Like, it was just such a violent and gnarly crash, and I swear that I had broken my foot, and it was like at that point I was like, you know what, like, this thing is way gnarlier than I thought, way crazier than I thought, and I didn't respect it. And to be honest, like, I think I might have just met my match. And so I really didn't pursue it much after that, because it just, I don't know. And it was cool because, like, some of the people that rode Mega were like, no, come on, man, you gotta, like, give it another shot, like, give it another try. And I was just like, no, I think I'm done. Like, it just bit me hard enough to where I was like, I just don't see, like, the risk versus reward on this thing for me just doesn't pan out.
Do you think there's any perfect rider for Mega that transferred from, just doing normal park riding? Like, I would say the best Mega Ramp rider that came from park riding beforehand, absolutely, undoubtedly, is Morgan Wade.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the guy I was about to say. But he's got that mentality, like, from day one of him coming on the scene, like, mentally he's just been able to charge it, and just have, like, this confidence and this vision of, like, how it's going to work. And I think that translates so well for him for Mega, because, his goal every time he hits Mega, it isn't the jump. His goal is the quarter, which is, I feel like, the opposite of most guys that hit the Mega. Is they want to hit the jump. They don't want nothing to do with the quarter pipe, And so when you watch like Morgan hit the Mega, he's like, how do I get the most speed so I can go as high as possible in that quarter pipe, And that's just like, I don't know, to me that's just very admirable, because it's just like, that's a 27-foot tall quarter pipe, and he's going consistently 20 feet and above. I think the record's like 23 feet or something like that, and he hits it almost every single year. And I'm just like, dude, that is so nuts, like, so crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And I asked Mike Escamilla this question a while back, because he does, like, he's a judge in a lot of different contests, and I wanted his opinion on 2019 X Games, where we had Morgan Wade versus Ryan Williams on Mega, with Morgan Wade doing a double whip into the Mega Ramp, roll-in. I think it was a 720 no-hander or a 360 backflip no-hander over the actual jump. And then he did a double whip, like a one-handed double whip. And then we had Ryan Williams do backflip in. He did front bike flip across the jump, and then front flare on the actual quarter. With Ryan winning that, do you think that, what's your opinion on that? Do you think that Morgan's run was better, or do you think that Ryan's run was better?
I remember talking about this, like, afterwards and stuff, and just, like, being like, man, I don't know. Like, I think that, so if you dissect it, to the roll-in where Morgan double whipped and Ryan flipped, I would give the double whip to Morgan, or I give the points to Morgan for the double whip, because I feel like the double whip is just a little bit higher risk, while the backflip is, might be scary. Well, I don't know if it's scary, but, like, more impressive looking. I just think double whipping from a hop is harder, like, you just don't see many people doing that, and you see a lot of people that are able to back drop. So for me, I feel like the double whip wins. The front bike flip to 360 no-hander, God, dude, I don't know. I feel like the front bike flip, there's a lot that can go wrong in that, to where, like, if it goes wrong, you're not pulling it. It's like either do or die kind of thing. So, well, that's a toss-up, man. I mean, honestly, the whole thing could be close. The quarter pipe, Morgan just goes so high, and a one-handed double whip there, like, nobody's ever done that. Like, nobody has done that. And then you have ran with the front flip flare, which is gnarly in itself, and he was going pretty high. It's like, it's close, and that's why I never want to be a judge, because I think you could argue either way on that one, and you could be right, but like, I've always said, like, I never really want to be a judge because it's the one job where you could put your heart and soul into it. You could do the best job ever, and there's always going to be someone that's like, you suck, man. So for me, yeah. So, I mean, as far as that one goes, like, I'm not really going to give my ruling on it. I think those guys both rode amazing. I think it could have gone either way, and I don't think anybody would have been upset except for maybe the guy that didn't get first,
Yeah, and Mike had the same kind of answer with that as well about the double whip versus the backflip, saying that with the backflip, worst comes to worst, you make it 3/4 of the way around and you just basically slide down the ramp. However, with the double whip in, if you're at a dead sailor on that, like, there's no getting out of that. You can't just roll away clean, like, especially with how steep and huge that roll in is. And then same thing with the one-handed double whip. He was saying that trick is insane. Nobody's ever done it, like the front flail or the front flare was really nice. However, it's one of those things where it's really hard to put them against each other. But I think Mike's final answer was that he believes that, Morgan definitely should have took the win on that. I'll have to go back and listen to that episode. It was quite a while ago, but yeah. I think judging has got to be so difficult, like, there's so much that goes into it. And like you said, like, you can do everything perfectly and people aren't going to agree with you.
Yep. Yeah, it's a tough job.
For sure. So let's jump into, some BMX contest stuff and the 2020 Olympics. So what differences can we expect between the Olympics and contests like Xgames, Simple Session, and Do Tour?
That's a tough one. I think Xgames, just because they use, like, normally cement bowls and stuff like that, it's a totally different discipline, in my opinion. Like, even the Vans contest stuff, they're so much fun and amazing and such a cool vibe. It's like, it's just a different style of riding out there. It's like the Hurricane Feast courses are just, the courses are a little more basic than like you would see like a cement bowl thing. But to me, that makes it so riders can go out there and just start doing like the most amazing tricks that they can do. They don't really have to get used to the course a lot. It's just like they kind of know. And so there's a beauty in that because you'll get like the highest level of trick riding. It really doesn't take a lot of time for them to get used to it. So it's really makes it easier for them to adapt their tricks to the, to the course that's out there. I think simple session courses are good because it tailors to both street and park riders. And then, like the Do Tour stuff, that might be the closest kind of like cousin to what's out there now, just because those courses were like set up in the same way. It's like, let's make these courses so people can get on there and ride them. I think the Do Tour courses a lot of times were like the design aspect was like way, way better. They had this like huge inventory of ramps that they could use, and they would pack these courses full of them to where like there was just so many more options. So I really actually miss the Do Tour courses. I wish we could somehow bring the Do Tour back in, to recreate that, because that was just like, to me, like the golden era. But I really love what's going on with the Olympic movement now, with the feast events and being worldwide, and just the level of riding is going insane. People are taking it a lot more serious now too, which is cool to see. Like they're committed to it and they want to be a part of it and they want to make their way to the Olympics and try to get a medal.
So Ryan, we touch base on like the judging aspect a little bit. Is there more of a structure when you're competing at feast or one of the qualifiers, or is it still very subjective based on like whether you suck or not? But like, is there a rubric that these judges are working with?
Yeah, so the judges have to go through like a training before they become like an official judge of like a UCI sanctioned event. So there is more structure to it, and they take it real serious, man. Like, which is good because there's a lot on the line. So I would say it's probably the most serious we've ever had judging be. Because it's always like, back in the day, like judges would go hang out and they'd go to the bar and drink and like you don't see that anymore really. Like the judges like they're taking this very seriously because they know like at any one contest it could make or break the chance for a country to go to the Olympics. So I don't think anybody wants to be in that position where they make a mistake and do that. But it is, I mean, I don't know. It's high stakes, high level. So the judges are preparing themselves accordingly.
That's awesome. So back, I think it was like a year or two ago, I wanted to do a podcast and you were supposed to be my first guest. Obviously it never happened because Angie roped me in with the Bloom and it was like, I was too busy with that. But I did have a couple questions about coaching. And so one of my questions was like, how did that opportunity come about for you? And was it specifically to coach the women's BMX freestyle team? And were there other contenders? I don't think anyone else would have been better for the job but you, but were there other people that USA Cycling was looking at?
As far as other people, I honestly don't know. I'm not sure if they were looking at anybody or what was going on with that, but how it all came about for me was, I knew that there would be positions for it, and honestly, I was very interested in it because I felt like through the years, of like whether it be at your home park or going to Woodward and stuff, like I found a lot of like satisfaction like trying to help riders learn stuff, and I felt like my brain worked in such a way of analyzing things that I could really try to help people. And also like, I'm probably closer to the tail end of my career than I am the beginning of it. So I knew that, the knowledge I had could really help riders that are just trying to break through, try to like, make that next step into becoming like a better rider. And maybe that would mean they make the national team or go to the Olympics. And I honestly felt like it'd be really cool to be involved in that part of the process. So when the Olympics was announced and stuff like that, I became in contact with Jamie Staff, who I knew through. We actually both rode for Harl. He was like an amazing elite racer, and I was, just on the freestyle side, but we traveled to a lot of the same events together. So I was like, hey man, like, and he was the current coach of the race side, and I just started asking him, like, what is it like? What is coaching like? Like what does it entail? Are you, you yelling at him to do push-ups, or what's the deal? And so, because we had never had coaches, and so I was like, what does it mean to be a coach? And so, just through talking with him, I was like, man, it seems like something I might be interested in. So, on my own, I kind of started working with like the women of the USA and helping them out, because it wasn't really a conflict for me to be riding these events and also coaching the women. So I started helping them, like, just with things like planning the runs, like finding lines, helping them, sort their tricks out, just, the real basic stuff. And I was like, I was enjoying it. It was a lot of fun. It was just like, I don't know, it was just cool. And so basically I started like kind of doing that role just voluntarily, to try it out, to see if it's something that, hey, maybe eventually I do want to do this, because I didn't want to like all of a sudden just be like, yep, I'm going to be a coach and then not have like any experience. I was like, well, if I can just help them on the side, then that might, I don't know, just give me some kind of indication that like down the line, I wouldn't want to do this, And so, just doing it for free, doing it for just the experience, it started to become something I was like, man, I can see myself being like pretty passionate about this, like pretty passionate about helping other people formulate the runs, using the knowledge I've had through the years of doing my own runs, and knowing what it takes to plan a run, I can help them. So eventually it became something where the USA did want and need a coach for the women. They actually needed a coach for the men too. And so they started talking to me about all that stuff. And I said, well, I'm down to do the coaching for the women. Obviously I'll continue doing that. For the men, I was like, I still kind of want to get, like put my hat in there for being an athlete, but if you want me to coach, I can do that too. And I was like, I'm fairly confident that I can separate it. Like I can help the riders however they want, and I can still be a rider. And they just felt like they wanted to avoid any kind of like potential conflict. So they're like, well, let's do it like this. Well, you can do the women, and then if down the line you feel like doing the men, we feel like we can get by without a coach at the moment. So I was like, okay. So then basically, like, I was doing my part to try to be an athlete, and then just it wasn't panning out. I wasn't getting the results I was hoping for. So at one point, basically, myself and Tony D kind of sat down and crunched some numbers, and like the signs were on the walls. Like, man, it'd be really hard to make this work, to get an Olympic spot as an athlete, because there's so few spots to begin with. Like, you really have to be like the number one rider in the country, and I wasn't getting the results I was hoping for. So they basically talked to me about the position. We went back and forth and made an offer, and then we worked it out. So now I'm the head coach of the men and women USA BMX freestyle team.
Nice. So when news broke out that there would be coaches for the freestyle team for any country, a lot of people were saying like, well, you don't really need a coach, but I mean, clearly there's some obvious advantages to it. So when you became the official coach, or even maybe before, like, how did you start your assessment? Like, did you look at, what parts they were running? Did you look at, or did you have a discussion like, hey, what do you want to improve on? Like, how did you get things rolling with like the individual riders?
Yeah, a lot of communication, a lot of just talking. I kind of grown to know the women pretty well and their riding styles and stuff like that. And you just kind of like look at each rider individually and figure out what they can work on and what they might be interested in working on, or you let them tell you what they want to do too. So it's very interesting because everybody kind of like every rider is different. And some people love you to be hands on and really there and like keeping close contact, while others like they really don't want that. They really just kind of want to be on their own doing stuff, and if they need you, they'll find you, kind of thing. So it was, you kind of had to figure out what each rider, how they like to be approached, and like how you like to, be coached, if you will. And the word coach is even weird too, because like sometimes it makes sense that you're like a coach, and other times it's like you're kind of a mentor, and other times like you're just like a buddy, So it really has different facets of it, and it's for me, it's just learning how each rider wants to be treated.
I've seen some even texts where you're also playing like the therapist in a way, just that support system, right? So I'm curious to know, of all the women you've coached so far on the team, who would you say is your favorite student in terms of like who actually does their homework when you tell them to, and who's the bed seat of the group, if you're allowed to say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to play the favorite team. I can tell you like the ones that I really enjoy coaching, the ones that really kind of have an open mind and are receptive to advice. Like there's some athletes that, they are like, I mean, this isn't a fault by any means, but they're very confident in what they're doing, and they've thought it out, and they have a way to do stuff. And so like a lot of the advice you might be able to give is met with like almost like a brick wall mentality, and that's just some people, some riders, like, I mean, I've worked with some riders that are just mentally so strong, and it's like, dude, you've got it figured out, like this. So, but I mean, not that that's not fun for me, but you always love being able to help someone and have that direct influence, and so you can see like the work that you're doing. So like for me, it's just, I really enjoy working with people that are like, open to advice and open to suggestions, and then also ones that you're comfortable enough to like kind of go against what they might think is best for themselves, and be able to be open like that, and be able to say like, hey man, like I think you're wrong, So for me, it's I love being able to like have someone who is receptive to it, but that goes both ways too, because if I'm wrong, I have to be able to own that as well. If I give advice that was just crap, then I have to be like, yeah man, sorry, my bad. And you just hope it's not in a situation that just totally blows it.
Yeah. So with that said, I mean, the U.S. team for men or women, but especially the women, they're killing it right now. Is there anyone coming up that you're hoping will stick with BMX for 2024 at this point?
Yeah, I mean, wait, sorry, did you say, am I hoping to stick with it to 2024?
Oh, well, I mean, that too, but are there also any female riders coming up that you're hoping that they'll stick with it until the next Olympics?
Yeah, all of them. I mean, we have for the USA, we have such an amazing talent pool, and I really hope that they all stick with it, because I feel like a lot of the women that we do have on the team have like such huge potential to be forces, in the next 4, 8, even 12 years, it's like we have a really, really bright future ahead of us. So yeah, I do hope they all stick with it, and I hope that I can work with all of them, kind of moving in the future too.
It's no surprise that Team USA is just killing it right now, but like, why is that? Because For Canada, I mean, we could say, yeah, our weather's crap like half of the time, but we do have some amazing indoor parks. Like, what's with USA that's, so far ahead right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we have amazing talent, and I can't take all the credit being that like I made them who they are because some of the riders have been riding at a really high level for
Hmm.
years. But I also think that having those people in the U.S. and having those people to be kind of role models for other riders coming up is really important too. And I think we feed a lot of the motivation for a lot of countries from our riders, and that's a pretty powerful statement to make, but I think it's true, like this day and age with Instagram and all that stuff, it's like our riders are consistently putting stuff out there that just makes people just scratch their head, like, whoa, like Hannah's been on such a tear lately
Yeah.
with her progression that it's just like super impressive, it's just like, she's literally just like driving people to be better, by putting her stuff on there. So, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because I'd rather her just drive to make herself better and not have to have the rest of the world watch her progress, because she can be a force for many years to come. But that's just the way it is, she's just learning stuff at such an accelerated rate that it's impressive. It's really, really impressive to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So, here we go. Sorry. Awesome. So I've just got a couple fan questions, and then I'll have one more question for you, and then we'll end this off. So Ben4130 asks, if you had to guess, how many bar spins have you done in total? Would it be over 10,000 bar spins? Or 100,000, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Way over 10,000. I'd say way over 100,000 too. At one point, Nikolai tried to make me calculate this. I think it was Tyler McCall actually, but Nikolai helped. We came up with 500,000 bar spins or something like that. And there's no way they actually get an accurate number, but it was something wild like that, something like 500,000. Give or take 100,000 either way. But yeah, it's a lot. Just that was always one of my favorite tricks. And once I learned them, I just kept doing them. I just loved the way they felt. I loved the challenge of it. The fear of spinning double and kind of having that fear if it's going to work or not. I don't know. I always just loved that trick. So yeah, there's definitely a high count on that one.
Do you ever miss the bars by accident or anything anymore, or is that kind of 10,000 bar spins ago?
No, it still happens. You land with your bars backwards and stuff, and it's funny because I feel like I've done that enough in situations where people have seen it, like contests or whatever, that it's it's kind of a joke. Like when someone does it, it's like Nyquist. I'll take it. It'd be enough for something, right?
Oh, that's awesome. Spot the Looney is wondering if you could tell us what your favorite skate park was when you were a kid.
When I was a kid, I mean, the park I grew up riding was San Jose Ramp Club. I mean, it's not there, but that park was just so epic. The sessions we had there were just I just felt like we were pushing each other so hard. And then outside of that one, I would go and visit. There's a skate park called Scrap in Chicago, and that one, just the people that rode there, they had this huge box jump that was just so much fun. That park was awesome. What else, man? JC Park. I think that one probably one of my favorites of all time, just because of the people that rode there, the sessions we had, the energy, the antics, the laughs, the trash talking. It was just, I don't know. It's really good memories that came out of that place for sure.
What was that dirt jump park that you used to ride when you were younger? It's in an Ally Sports video. You go
Calabasas.
Back. Yeah, Calabasas. That place looks awesome. It's really cool to see that, in that video you were saying that, that park originally, or that dirt jump place, was basically it was all a bunch of people that built it, and then the city came in, and instead of tearing it out and making everybody find a new location, they came in and actually made it a public park.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, and that changed. I mean, honestly, it changed the way the park was. It was pretty wild west out there. You just had to have a shovel and get some water, and you could build whatever you wanted. But I think the city coming in, and kind of regulating it and making a place where the kids can ride, was probably the best case scenario, to be honest. Because I mean, you can't have that stuff now where it's like there's a liability and someone can get hurt and sue. It's just like, so for them to come in and basically make it legit and put fencing in and have someone maintain it, like that was, I thought that was really cool, you know, because you're right. Like they could have just tore it down and been like, sorry guys, we don't do this, you know, but they decided, I mean, the public was really the outcry because it was that place had been there for, I mean, like 3 generations of riders, you know, and so it's like when it goes through that much time of people being like, I used to ride that place, you know, we used to jump in and out of that creek. I mean, there's just a lot of history there. So I think the fact that the public came out and kind of, you know, outcry for them not to do anything and not to tear it down was enough for them to be like, okay, well, this is a part of, you know, of what makes our community rad. So let's make it legit.
Hell yeah. It's really cool to see that the city actually did that. You know, we're starting to see a lot of parks around here that are dirt parks, you know, and the city is coming in and maintaining them and whatnot. There's a park in town here in Kitchener, but they don't really maintain it. They send a guy out like once or twice a year. And it's really unfortunate because it's a really good setup. There's lots of good jumps there. And, you know, like they get you in a huge amount of trouble if you go in with your own shovel and try and maintain it. Like, it's really weird because a lot of us would probably just do it for free, you know, just give us a key and we'll maintain it, go there a couple times a week. But yeah, unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way, you know?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So my last question for you, Nyquist. What advice would you have for an up and coming BMX rider in today's world?
Oh man. I mean, I would say do it because you love it. You know, I mean, I think I've seen a lot of kids are like doing it because they think eventually they're going to turn pro and they're going to make a bunch of money and stuff like that. And there's a motivation in that for sure, but I don't know if it's a longevity, you know, that's going to last, you know, to be like one of the best because you just want to make money or get sponsored. You know, that's a very short-term goal. You know, I think if you're doing this because you're passionate about it and you love it, then you might be able to take it someplace. But if you don't, you're still going to get something out of it because you're getting enjoyment because you love it, you know? So I think that's the biggest thing is like, life's too short to do something that you don't love. You know, like I feel like I very firmly believe that everybody should have some kind of passion in their life, something they wake up in the morning and just can't wait to go do, you know, whether that's something you do for a living or something you do on the weekends. Like everybody needs that in their life. And so if you're, you know, really want to be the best BMX rider in the world, then make sure it's something you love doing. If it's not, then find out what that is and go and do that, because that passion will take you further than, you know, hopes of a paycheck or free parts or whatever. And then secondly, man, wear safety gear, you know, helmet, pads, whatever that is. Like, I really feel firmly in like, if this is something you want to do, then protect yourself because yeah, it's dangerous. You know, if you fall down, it's not if, it's when. And so if you do fall down and when you do fall down, make sure you're wearing your helmet, make sure you're wearing pads, make sure you're wearing all that stuff. It'll just allow you to keep doing this thing that you love for longer, you know? And so to me, that's, you know, that's the 2 biggest pieces of advice. Just do it because you love it and pad up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you've always been, you know, a really good advocate for safety gear and helmets and whatnot. And, you know, like especially in today's day and age where you see so many people that ride without a helmet, without pads, without a care in the world, you know, and like it's so unfortunate to see that somebody like Scotty Kramer, who literally was like, you know, on top of the game for advocating with this stuff, where his YouTube channel reaches millions of people. And he is always saying, like, wear a helmet, wear a helmet, wear a helmet. It's unfortunate that, like, what happened to him, he was wearing a helmet as well, you know? Like, I think that, you know, it's really sad that you see a lot of people. I think there's a We the People rider. I think it's Jordan Godwin. He did a 360 down this huge stair set and, like, 450'd, smacked his head on the ground. Like, you know, these are the kind of clips that, like, kids are seeing and it gets them hyped on BMX, but, like, you really got to wear a helmet, whether you're riding park, street, flatland, any of it. Like, you only have one brain, you know, and unfortunately, medical science hasn't figured out how to give you a new one yet, you know?
Yeah, it is, man. So I hate seeing people crash and get hurt severely when it's something that could have been, you know, prevented by just having a piece of padding on or a helmet or whatever. So to me, it's just, that's always advice I've given, because, whether you're just messing around or doing whatever, it's like nobody likes to be hurt. Like, sucks, man. So you can wear something that's going to at least try to prevent that, then why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
A good portion of the time, too, it's not even when you're doing something big. That's when you'll roll away. A lot of the time, it's when, you're just messing around. You're not really thinking much. You're doing something that you've done 1,000 times,
Yep. That's what happens when you're not 100% focused.
Yeah, really unfortunate, But yeah, Nyquist, I really want to thank you for joining Beatrice and I today on the Goat Cave. This has been incredible, like growing up as a kid, I looked up to your riding and everything, and it's really cool to see that, I actually got to have a conversation with you, whether it be over the phone, like this has been awesome. So a huge shout out and a huge, thank you for this.
No worries. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Happy birthday too. Happy 41st.
Thanks.
Alrighty, we'll end it off here. Nyquist, again, thank you so much. Beatrice, anything you want to add?
No, thanks. Honestly, thanks for doing this. Fulfilling pretty much my dreams too of having this conversation with you too. So thanks.
Absolutely, good times.
Perfect. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Later.
Bye.